You are here on Concussed, Understanding the Invisible Injury. And you know what? I thought it was invisible for a few minutes. We are here at the bottom line. Of course, as you can see, we're building our new set. It's not only going to be for Gouche Live, doing the pregame shows for the Toronto Maple Leafs, it's also going to be here for Concussed and Mental Health Mondays. And I've got two very special people here tonight. We are going to listen to a journey like no other journey. And I'll tell you what, it's going to open our eyes to understand the cause, effect, consequences of an injury that a lot of people maybe take for granted. And that's why we're talking about concussed and concussions. And I'll tell you what, we are so excited to talk to these two. Just before I get them up, I want to discuss what we're doing here. Concussed is a show to help educate us all on the aspects of concussions. Concussions can do and lead you to many different journeys, and this one you'll hear tonight has a good story. Obviously, it went down a dark path, but then getting the proper therapy, getting the proper diagnosis, and getting the proper people to help Ryan, and you'll hear that tonight, it certainly has steered him in the right path. Some of us don't get that lucky. I'm one of the lucky ones. Jim Thompson, as you know, is one of the lucky ones. And Ryan, right now, seems to be absolutely so well adjusted and is able to bring us a very important story. So, Cielo and, of course, Ryan Phillips are here. Listen, I am so lucky to have you both on tonight. I'm having a couple of issues, of course, technically because my producer had to take the night off because we were working all day here. Ryan and Cielo, how are you two?
See you, Gooch. From the west to the east, all the best. Sending everybody, all my friends out in Ontario, the absolute best. Cielo's brothers out there that used to play for the Argos. He's probably had
Yes,
a few concussions himself.
go
So,
Argos!
hey, you know what? I'm more of an Argos fan than a BC Lions fan. So, that's don't hold that against me, BC.
All right, no worries.
Anyways,
Well, listen, send hate mail to Ryan Phillips at .com.
uh, so.
Somebody's playing music. Hey, listen, let's talk about your journey. Of course, it's been a very long journey for you. Obviously, why don't you give us a little bit of aspects of how you got to where you are now, Ryan? Of course, and we'll hear from Cielo, of course, how you've been able to diagnose and obviously understand the consequences, and now, of course, being properly managed.
He asked you.
I thought Ryan was
Yeah,
supposed
well,
to be giving
Cielo,
that story.
he asked you about your concussion journey. So you go first, and then we can hear about the 50 plus that I've been diagnosed with the top neurologist in Canada, Dr. Ashkan Jalili from the Canadian Brain Performance Center, who we both see, but Dr. Ashkan. So we've both actually witnessed and seen each other's growth over the past, 6, 7 months has been incredible. Going in there thinking that I got misdiagnosed with ADD, bipolar, all these things, and then to see that it was quite the opposite. And it was, Cielo heard it from Dr. Jalili's mouth. He'd never seen a brain so concussed, actually, at the top 10% of any brain that he's seen. I'd suffered in that top percentile. So, but I want to make it very, very clear that the worst concussions that I took were outside the game of hockey. So we all have our journeys. This is about humanity, and obviously sports is a huge thing too with concussions that's being brought to the forefront. We're so much more educated now than we used to be. There's a reported 69 million people per year that suffer a traumatic brain injury in the world. That's just the ones that are reported. And so there's an estimated 1.6 to 3.8 million sports and recreation related concussions that occur in the USA alone per year. And there's 200,000 estimated sports related concussions that are reported in Canada per year. That's just
Right.
sports related and the ones that are actually diagnosed. So that gives you a few of the numbers that it
Well,
happens.
Well, as you know, Ryan, me being in the business, understanding that numbers, the statistics are probably even more than that because a lot
Yeah.
of this goes undiagnosed, of course. And with myself, my journey, this is not about me tonight, but we understand that sometimes we get driven in a direction and we hear numbers and we automatically gravitate to those numbers. But I'm sure Cielo, and of course Ryan, that when we hear, let's say it's 2 million, we know it's probably 4 million. And that's why it's so important that we take this injury very serious. Obviously, Ryan, you mentioned that, you had over 50 concussions. And we, as athletes, understand that, we always say, hey, I had 3 diagnosed, but how many go undiagnosed? And I know
Mhm.
I had an opportunity to talk to Keith Primo, who's a part of our Stop Concussion program. He said he had 4 documented, but he certainly was way over 20. And so I really think that we need to kind of forget the numbers and really focus on the journey that concussions can take. And Cielo, I know that you've been very close to this topic. Obviously, you've lived it. You're watching Ryan live it. You're actually a therapist that can help us understand how we as athletes, Ryan, you can attest to this. We were taught to suck it up, play through the pain. If it ain't broke, you played. And unfortunately, today we can't do that any longer. So I want to come to you, Cielo, for a few seconds and talk about the importance of getting that proper diagnosis and then finding the right therapy. And what's really important, and a lot of people don't understand this, it's not a blanket therapy. It's not a light switch. You can't just say Ryan or Carrie or Jim or Bob or Cielo. When we talk about concussions, we know that women suffer it differently. We know young girls and boys suffer it differently, and we know athletes. Every concussion is different. Every brain is different. So walk me through this. How important it is to first get the proper diagnosis.
Well, first, I just want to be very clear. I'm not a doctor. I do integrated functional healing and I do transpersonal psychotherapy and hypnosis. And I'm an international yoga teacher. I have an international yoga school. So I deal with a lot of people. But first of all, um, I didn't know that I had a concussion. I didn't know that I didn't have to hit my head when it happened. I was in 3 MVAs where I had my head turned to the right, and I was rear-ended over 50 miles per hour each one of them. Actually, one was I was at a standing stop in all, so my head was turned, and the inside of my brain hit the inside of my skull. So I had no idea that I did even have a concussion, but I had all, instantly throwing up. I passed out for 4 hours for months on end. I was having um, anxiety attacks just from opening up my computer, and I couldn't tell like what button to push. It was just an absolute nightmare. Um, but that said, even though I was diagnosed with a concussion, I never got the right therapy. So unfortunately, the process that I was going through, because it was an MVA, I was sort of in this position where I had to follow a lot of rules because I had
Right.
lawyers involved. That meant I had to do what ICBC was telling me to do. But those therapies weren't working. I did stick to my guns, but after my first injury was in 2014, and I had another one 6 months later, and then I had another really bad one 2019. So over that period of time, after 4 years, all of my practitioners gave up. So I'm
Right.
talking the
Very
head,
common.
yeah, I'm talking like the head of, I'm very well connected in the sports medical field, and lots of the doctors and whatnot I know teach at the universities where I was
Yes.
actually teaching. So they basically at one point said, I'm sorry, I was having seizures and they couldn't figure out what was going on. Neurologists were telling me that it was all in my mind, that it was histrionic.
Yes.
My doctors were saying the same thing. So they're telling me, well, what do I do? They said, well, just don't do those movements. Well, what do you mean? I have 2 kids. I'm a yoga teacher. I depend on my body. There's no
Of
way
course.
that I can just avoid moving because when I can move, I want to move. But there's days where you're immobilized, in bed, can't walk, can't talk, can't see. So what do you mean? I was so lucky to finally sort of my journey kind of. I'm lucky that I have been trained in so many modalities,
Right.
therapeutics as well, because
Yes.
when everyone else gave up, I'm talking clinical physiotherapists, Pilates teachers, you name it. Like I saw probably 8 different practitioners. All of them gave up because they could not. create a recovery plan or a program for me if
Right.
they had no diagnosis and it's all in my head.
Right.
So finally, I was so lucky to reconnect through the Hope Center, where I teach and integrate people from the ward back into community once they've been committed for mental health issues. And I was lucky to run into Ryan, and we have known each other for 40 some odd years. We've had very similar things happen in our trial in our lives. We've had, born into athletics,
Yes.
and driven by the same type of family behind us.
Yep.
And in any event, he posted a picture of him doing some stuff with his brain, and I'm right on it going, what's going on? Where are you at? Weirdly enough, about 3 years prior to that, I'm on the internet and I see your friend, who was it?
Dan
Dan
Carcillo at the
Carcillo
time,
was
yeah.
doing a
Oh yeah.
documentary about his treatment in this center in Florida. And I was just floored by this. I thought, oh my God, that's what I need. But how am I going to do that? So I
Yep.
run into Ryan. He said, he says, this is his doctor. He brings me there. It turns out it's the doctor's partner. So this person, this amazing man, has been the first person in since 2014 to give any sort of diet. He's like, no, your mesolimbic part of your brain is just going off crazy, and
Yep.
I'm having, uncontrollable body movements. So, along that way, I was lucky because until I found him, I said, screw this, I'm doing it myself. And
Right.
I trained myself. I did crazy things, brain rehab at my home. I was dancing, trying to synchronize my brain. You name it,
Wow.
I did it. But thank God for him, because he has been the first person that said, it's not in your head, this is happening.
Well, that's amazing to hear and very refreshing, because there's
Yeah.
some people on here that I'm sure have heard the same things and not being directly understanding the complexity of this, right? Because it is a very complex story. Obviously, we got David Carlson. Thank you for joining us. Hello, Ryan, Gouche, and Cielo.
How
Robert
you doing,
Wine,
Dave?
one of our biggest supporters, of course. He's really excited. Robert is physically disabled, and you see him and he doesn't understand this invisible part of it, that you both look very healthy, and that
That's the
some
thing.
would say
Right?
Yeah.
you've gone through it, right? So that's what's really important. Barry Shelley, thank you for joining us. And all the way from Argentina, Matthew Meisner, thank you. I know it's interesting stuff, but it's all about Cielo and Ryan talking to us about their journey. Just before we go a little deeper, David Carlson's got a question. Wow, doctors are unaware of the diagnosis of concussions even now. There were no percussion protocols when he played AAA. That was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second, where you guys are now today and where we were. Let's say my concussions happened 40 years ago. We're farther ahead, but yet we're not there. And what we just heard from you, Cielo, that there is still this misguided information. And that's why it's so important to hear your journeys, so that we can kind of siphon through some of the myths and the misinformation that we're given. So that's why it's really great, because Ryan, you were diagnosed with bipolar. I know ADHD. I think you do have it. I know I do.
I
I
do
think
for sure. I
that's
think
almost.
everybody has a bit of
Yeah.
it, but it's a
I agree.
superpower. Christ.
but but yet we send them down that path. And I was just talking to a family who had a young boy. He's in OHL. He's 20 years old. He's had his third concussions, and the parents have asked us again. Thank you, Cielo, for saying you're not a doctor. It doesn't mean you don't know
No.
about the trials and tribulations of this injury because you don't have DR in front of you. Those letters only mean that you've been educated to become a doctor, but that doesn't mean you specialize in the world of concussions. And this family asked me, Carrie, I know you've gone through it. What would you recommend for my young son? Because we're concerned about the aftermath. And I
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
first, we do have to get him proper diagnosed. He does have to go through the medical system. Let's get you to the proper. My role, and I probably thinking you're the same, Cielo, is just to direct the traffic properly. Let's get them to be proper diagnosed so they don't go through what you just talked about, Cielo.
Yeah.
And I know, Ryan, you've been through that same. Ryan, talk to us a little bit about that. The confusion, the anxiety, just alone not
Absolutely.
knowing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember clear as day the first concussion that I sustained. I fell out of a tree when I was 6 years old. And I remember on the way to the hospital, I ended up spending 3 days in intensive care at the Lionsgate Hospital. And I mean, I could rip together a Rubik's cube. Simon Says, no problem. I had a photographic memory, and something just I remember clear as day because my grandfather was there getting an artery replaced on his leg, and I was like, the safety I felt that my grandpa was upstairs and I still had the ability to go up and down the stairs to see him was kind of comforting. But there was just something that happened that after that one day, things just weren't the same. I was always seeing things different. I was thinking different. And then I took a dodgeball to the head in elementary school. Like, just certain things. I don't know how many of these concussions I sustained until the first major concussion that I suffered in hockey was 7 games into my draft year. That story's been pretty well documented. I got hit from behind, and I broke my shoulder in three places, separated at the same time. I've had really bad shoulder injuries, but on this particular injury, going into the boards head first, full speed, and I tucked my head underneath, like my chin underneath my right, like this, and I just smoked the crown of my head,
Ouch.
going full speed. I was knocked out probably for a minute plus. My dad also, get up every time you were down, don't stay down. So I got up as soon as I can. I saw the stars, I got my, with what they would say back then, getting your bell rung.
Yeah.
And I got back to the bench, and this is my draft year. I'm full of what, and vinegar, trying to get out there and prove myself. And I'm sitting on the bench, not even like 20 seconds later, as I was playing in Tacoma for the Rockets at the time,
Yep.
and I get a kick on the butt. I can hurt. I'm a mess. My head, my shoulder. I jumped back out on the ice, and the puck came to my stick, and I literally, I couldn't take the puck on my stick, and went back to the bench. My shoulder just dropped,
Oh God.
and off to the dressing room, cut off the jersey, took me to the hospital in Washington at the time, and they treated everything but the concussion. So I had, I was out for, I think it was, I mean, I only played 25 or 27 games that year, basically because I was out to lunch. And,
Yeah.
that led into trying to fit in with the whole rookie thing, whatever,
Of
got into
course.
the
Yeah.
booze, not knowing, just, I was freaked out because I didn't know I knew it had happened to my shoulder, but I was so confused up in the noggin that, like, when I actually came back, I was seeing, it was like I couldn't see the puck right. I was drills were confusing me where
Yeah.
things used to come so easily to me. It was like, oh my god, okay, well, this is pretty much healed and good to go, but my something in my head is not working right. And
Yeah.
resilience, obviously, you push through it and you want to do the best you can, but then it's the nightmares, whatever, and then it just perpetuates as you
Yeah.
get older.
Yeah.
So really, I had a few since then, obviously, and
Right.
you
Years
know
ago.
yeah, actually, I don't even want to talk about what happened 2 weeks ago. I was bending down to pick up some hummus in the kitchen,
There you go.
and the guy, the bloody cupboard door was open, and I shot up real fast, and I nailed the same spot.
And you know what's,
So
we laugh about that, but it is so common, right?
Yeah.
And
that's the
I just
thing.
wanted to add to your story what you've just told me. I didn't know that part of your story. I wrote a book called Concussed. That's why we're doing this. We're trying to educate people on it. We're doing the second version. I'm going to have both of you write articles for it. It's just starting now. And in my book, when you read the story about what happened to me, you will see exactly what you talked about, the exact same story. I slid in the boards. I was lucky. I got to turn my head and I hit the side of it. And I was taken to the hospital in Germany 2 weeks into it. And the exact same thing. They took care of my shoulder. They had nothing to do with the brain. So I hear you very loud and clear. And I think that's what's important about a show like this is that we can tell our stories, but we also have to help people find their way. And that's why Cielo, what you've done here, international yoga, meditation teacher, founder of Life Well Yoga, teaching, training, and integrated wellness, we have kind of automatically, and Ryan, I know you're going to agree with this, we've automatically thought when we had a concussion as athletes, it's just a sexy word for brain injury, and
Yeah.
we almost, the conky or the concussion, it's almost a badge of courage. Yet when we think about it, we need another form of understanding this, and a lot of people automatically turn to neurology. Oh, we got to
Yeah.
go to a neurologist, they know everything. But unfortunately, we do understand that it is a functional issue and not a structural injury. So
Yeah.
people are automatically getting MRIs or CAT scan and not finding anything, and then a few days later or a weeks later, all of a sudden, your moods change,
Yeah.
all the
Oh
symptoms
yeah.
that come. Talk to us about that, Cielo, on how it's changed over the last
Right.
couple of years
Right. I'm just
on
gonna make one
diagnosis.
point
Of
before
course,
Cielo jumps
please
in
jump
because
in.
she'll be able to actually explain this. But
Yeah.
so what happened was obviously the amygdala is the core center of the brain.
Okay.
It's an almond-sized organ, and so what happened is when I hit the crown,
I have
it
no idea.
actually
Good for you.
shot down, and nailed my amygdala, which is the seat of the emotions. And everyone's, like growing up is
Right.
like, why are you so emotional? You're always so emotional about everything and this and that, whatever. I mean, I'm a passionate guy and I'm emotional, but seeing my brain on an actual scan and seeing how the blood it actually bled right down into the amygdala. So I basically, for the past, since that hit, it's like being on, the fight or flight response of the brain.
Right.
I've been on
Right.
fight for I don't know how many years. That's why, like, literally kind of explains, I could say, yeah, there's no excuse for, getting wrecked on cocaine, many other kinds of narcotics, alcohol, was my main go-to, which led into cocaine and
Yep.
then making bad decisions. It's like,
Yep.
okay, I thought really shitty of myself. It's one of those things where I was like, okay, well, didn't get drafted. This happened. Now what am I going to do? I'm done. And then the marijuana industry falls on my lap, and just all the destructive behavioral patterns, that came from these certain accidents, so to speak.
Right.
And, no excuse for becoming a drug dealer and, international drug smuggler, whatever. But, it was like I was so confused in life and I was partying so hard with, let's just say, the wrong crowd, but like I was the leader of the wrong crowd. I owned
Right.
that. She saw it. So I made many, many, many mistakes, so to speak, because of these head injuries. And now, in the healing process, I've been able to look back on those certain mistakes, so to speak, good or bad. I don't believe there is good or bad. I believe there's a lesson in everything to take in
Right.
and
Of
take
course.
through.
Yep.
But I look back on it and I'm like, okay, why did this happen? What was the cause and the effect of, like, these certain decisions? And then how I got caught up in this web of illusion that actually became my life for quite some time. And by the grace of God, you know, things happen, and I was able to get second chances. God,
9 lives.
infinite, 9 lives. I mean, I should be a cat,
Yeah.
but no victimization here whatsoever. I'm a
No. No.
sober
Yeah.
guy. I
Yep.
don't drink, just because it's not my wheelhouse to drink. If I went over the edge. I crossed the threshold where it was just too much for me.
Yeah.
It was, so I'm very grateful to have a chance to actually use my voice now, on a platform, on many platforms. If I can just help one life,
Yep. That's
see
right.
that if they suffer from any sort of brain injury, mental health issue, whatever it is, that it could be beyond, what they actually think it is.
Yep.
And um, we can all inspire each other. That's the thing.
No question.
It's all
And
about, really, inspiring each other to get the right treatment. I'm no doctor. I'm an ex-athlete and I've done a few things. And, that's one of the reasons why I made that decision to do, the cross country thing a few years ago. I was like,
right.
I got to do something here that just raises a bit of, awareness. But awareness isn't enough. I was on a
No.
show last week and I was like, why is there a stigma for mental health? There should be no stigma whatsoever when everything starts at the top. The body is part of the mind. It's all one. So
Yep.
I'll let Cielo take over here as I ramble too
Yeah.
much.
No, no, that's okay. Listen, we all have a journey, and we all try to understand our journeys, how they can affect other people. And that, so that's why we do a show like this, is because if you don't have open conversation and we suppress what we're actually going through, we never learn. And that's why I think it's really important with what you've done with your obviously following in your concussions, your diagnosis, your misdiagnosis, Cielo. You've done some amazing things. You've trained yourself. You've understood other ways of maybe dealing with it. Talk to us about that. How important it is. We can't only think about conventional medicine.
No, I want to address one thing because I think whoever you are around is going through this with you. And we're of a different era. We're from the era where our parents are like, you don't cry and you get up and you get moving and play harder, and everything's about harder, harder, harder. And we sort of have that paradigm and that way of thinking like locked into our minds. So first and foremost, I do want to address the fact that the person who suffers the brain injury or concussion isn't the only one affected, and the whole constellation is affected, your friends and your family. And it's very hard for people to understand what someone who looks okay and is going to work and doing trying to get by is actually going through on a daily basis. So I think the first thing, I mean, obviously you've got to get to a doctor. They're going to do all the regular things. They have to do a CAT scan if you're going to the hospital. Good. I have to rule out all these other things. But then each individual is going to be it's an organic and very dynamic uh it's like something you're following a moving target, because every day is different. So as many tools as you can have, and your support group has to be also open to maybe partaking in some maybe family therapy. I mean, I had an amazing life. I was doing everything I love to do. I was at the place in my life where I'm like, this is it. Both my two little kids were in school finally. I'm about to like blow up in what I want to do in life, and all of a sudden I'm hit. So the why I bring that up is because when a concussion hits somebody, it's not just the concussion this time. It's
So important.
every other
Yep.
past trauma you have had in your life.
Yeah.
So here you are, everybody. I can't tell you what every person is going to be like, but thank God we have functional medicine and a lot of integrated healing. My silver lining in this is that if you look at the bigger picture, like where I was like, why is he doing what he does? I believe there is a silver lining, because when everyone gave up on me, I was my own teacher. I had to dig
Yes.
deep. I was like, you want to talk about, I could probably I read every medical Harvard. I'm a geek, complete geek, 100%, probably 108%. That's what I do. I'm listening to every freaking doctor you can think of. Excuse me.
Yeah. No, that's all right.
That's the part of the brain you also have to be like forgiving, because what gets hit is this emotional place. It's like you have Tourette's, you have no filter, you're saying things to
Right.
people you don't mean to be saying, and you don't clue into
Very
that till
common.
maybe
Yeah.
4 years down the road. So the first thing is this. I mean, if it's your first concussion and you have the ability to get it on it right away and be cognitive behavioral therapy, that's what you're going to be sent to do. It's amazing because the behavioral patterns have to start moving through certain
Right.
things, certain stages, and it's progressive. Because if the brain has been knocked and then you go and just dump something on them, it's way too much. I can't even, I can't add three numbers together. I was also photographic memory. I look at something once, it's in my head, done, good, ready to go.
Right.
I go to my trainer, it's taking me 8 times to put something in my body that wouldn't take me a minute before.
Right.
I know my body really well. I've been practicing and sports for all my life.
Yes.
So there's it's very complex, because I had really bad traumatic experiences in my life, and I suffered PTSD. At
Right.
30, I was misdiagnosed with bipolar as well. So now, I was 42 when my first one happened. So it's really like, how does each individual um,
Cope.
cope but get supported? I kept trying everything I could. I had, every single modality, and now it's like I have this bag of tricks, and that's my silver lining is that I went through such severe trauma, and when my accident happened, all of my trauma came up, and I had past memories, things I'd shut off. I had
Right.
no, I all coming down the pipes at once. And
Right.
so, how do you deal with that? You're seeing a psychotherapist, I'm doing CBT, I'm going to a doctor, I'm being put on meds. I mean, you name it, I did it.
while helping everybody else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
biggest thing I can say is you've got to be doing some sort of somatic experience. You can do
Right.
all the talking you want, but if you've
So
got
just one
anxiety,
sec. Sorry. Somatic. I don't. I got to
body,
grade 12. I passed grade
yeah,
6.
no, a
Help me out.
body-based experience for sure,
Okay. All right.
because it's that every cell has memory. Every single part of us. So every time we repress something, every time we've had even, a ball coming at our head at, 20 miles per hour, and you're doing this, the energy of that's coming to you and it's hitting all these different fields of our being. We're not just this, right? We've got the physical, but then we have mental, emotional, bodies and subtle energies within us. So it's like taking a hit to a level of yourself that you can't see, and you're really confused as to what the hell is going on. So it's so important, because if you think about it, if you get a ball hit at you, say at the shoulder, the injury is sure to the tissues, the cells, but then it's radiating to everything around. So all the major organs, but also if we're working through Eastern philosophies, you're working on the energy centers of the body. And all of each of those has specific reactions and responses in the body. Um, we have to, it's like taking big blocks of trauma and freezing them into your body anywhere. He's had 50 more concussions. Can you imagine what his head has looked like?
She
I mean,
runs her fingers over top of my head sometimes. It's like going over
gravel road with
to like
potholes in Nanaimo,
Yeah.
like in
Yeah.
1937. It's like,
It's
what is
crazy.
going on? It's nuts. So what I'm saying is, I mean, there has to be, yes, talking is good, but if you only talk when we are present, we are physically having an experience. When we're
Right.
not in the present and we're caught in the trauma of the past and we're
Right.
anxiety ridden, looking like, oh my God, I can't get to my job, I can't speak, what am I going to do? That's what's happening in your head when you have that
Yeah.
much anxiety from a concussion. So we have to bring it back to, what do I feel in the moment right now?
Right. Well,
Stop and
listen.
breathe.
well, a lot of
Yeah.
it
Very,
too.
very important.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Go.
a lot of it too is the internal trauma. Like the thing is that, because the brain goes on that freeze, which is actually like it's your body's response on a positive trying to protect you.
Mhm.
Right.
And it's like, you go into that freeze state and where it's like, for myself, I've always been a very motivated guy, and it literally is kind of like I don't want to call it a disease, but it is kind, like
Yeah.
CTE is a disease. And
Right.
so it's basically, you have to work with the brain, the parts of the brain that still do work.
Right.
But we're really blessed, obviously, with working with Dr. Ashcan at the Canadian Brain
Yes.
Performance Center.
Who
You
we
know,
will get on this show.
oh,
I'm
absolutely,
excited
yeah,
about.
Yeah.
he's amazing.
Oh, brilliant man.
Hey,
But
listen. I want to, if you don't mind, I'd like to. I'm going to further conversation, but we're getting a lot of comments. So I really just want
Yeah.
to put some up because it's so important.
absolutely,
Barry Shelley's coming on. Ryan, a friend of mine who played goal while you played for the
Greggy.
Thunder, who's Greg Smith, told me about the games back then, explains the injuries, obviously. There's
Oh,
another great comment from David Carlson. He says, the road to
Uh,
happiness, but I think it was called The Return to Happiness, if I'm not
yeah.
mistaken. An incredible documentary. When I first met you, I went on it. Wow, what a row. Here's a great one. I know you played in Regina with another friend of mine, Reed Lowe. How is it?
Uh,
And this, I want to hear this. This is a very
mm,
good question. How is the
okay.
procedure dealing with head injuries in juniors to compared? And you both can answer this. First, you, Ryan. Obviously, there's been a huge change from when I suffered my concussion in Germany. We didn't talk about it. We went solely to the shoulder that I had injured, and we only talked about my shoulder as what happened to you too. Talk to us about the change. First, you, Ryan, of when you played junior, went through your experiences, and what you see now. And then I'd love to hear from you also, Cielo.
well, when I was playing junior and professionally, I actually never was treated for any concussions at all. There was no treatment for the concussion. It was literally like, well, my head's killing me. My head's killing me. So putting a bag of ice on top of my head. I had no MRIs, no CT scans, none of that kind of stuff. None of that was, thrown my way at that time. Greg, who I know, Smitty, really well from back in the day in Wichita, and Nashville. um, he saw a lot. Just the game was played a lot more reckless, I would say back then. But I remember, when I was playing with Smitty, clear as day, going across the blue line. I was telling Cielo the other day, getting clothesline coming across the blue line. I mean, I must have been up probably, 2, 3 feet off the air and went down, and my head bounced off the ice like a basketball off on a basketball court. But I was back out there, 3, 4 minutes later. That was in Lake Charles, or where was that? And I forget exactly where the actual incident did happen, but Greg was there. He saw it. Yeah, that's the thing is, and then there was like a gap in between there. I was like, why do I not remember what happened
Mm.
2 weeks ago? What, I ended up breaking my hand that year and having steel rods in my hand. And, but that was after the concussion. So I was like putting more focus on my hand. But at the same time, I was like, what is going on here? These headaches are just like
Uh,
ridiculous. And, I am donating my brain to science, when I do pass in, 80 years.
Thank God you haven't already done it.
See, that's the thing is like, right now I love that we can have fun about this, but
Yeah,
the severity is like, I'm just coming out of, a couple days of, where I had, I get seizures. I literally flail kind of and get seizures. My back is like a piece of plywood half the time that needs to be worked on, diligently. And, if I don't have that, if I don't see the chiropractor on a regular basis, yeah, I'm a gong show. I'm a wreck. I get nothing done. And obviously, the brain takes up 80% of the energy in the human body. Okay.
right.
So when you get
Of
into the
course.
kinesiology part of things and whatnot.
Right.
So when you've had an injury to the brain like that, obviously everything's energy. So lack of energy, fatigue, motivation, all that kind of stuff, of course, that's exactly what's going to go down. I mean, yesterday I wanted to go run for an hour and a half on the treadmill and lift some light weights, but I couldn't get out of bed. I had tears in my eyes. I was in so much pain with a headache.
Right.
And at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm in her room and she's taking me through a process, you know, and she's like, "Oh my God, I can like feel your thoughts, your brain's like."
Yeah. It's a
You tell
mess.
them.
Yeah. So obviously Matthew Meisner, thank you, guys. Keep spreading the
Thank you,
word.
Matthew.
It's so
Appreciate
important.
that.
He's in Argentina, just a wonderful guy, doing a lot of hockey stuff. Cielo, I wanted to now come to you. Obviously, we heard what Ryan was talking about. Obviously, your concussions came from a motor vehicle accident. Talk to us about the change from now to. Did I get that correct? You
oh,
said MVA, didn't you?
well, probably my first really bad concussion was when I was 5, and I got hit really hard, and I went flying over the bars, and I split my head open, my eyes, I was on the ground for 45
Oh,
minutes in a puddle of blood. And no one ever, the only way I knew that I had a concussion later on was that because I've had migraines as well for my whole life, really severe. But I was working for a chiropractor when I was around 22, and he did x-rays of my neck, and I had severe compression in C1, 2, 3. C1 through 7, actually really bad at certain points. And so, I mean, when I recall my headaches and the terror I would go through when I was that young, I didn't really know what was going on until I went through the concussions that I've had now. So, so that was my first one there. I probably had a few fastballs drilled at my head while it was rolling. I was a pitcher really competitively, and I had line drives at my head. I don't know how many times I was really quick with my hands, but they did hit me once or twice. So I don't know. Tell me your question again moving forward.
Well, obviously, what you went through at a younger age,
Yeah.
and now where we are today, because all the things that you've educated yourself on.
Yeah.
Obviously, you mentioned that you read all these different type of papers to understand how to get yourself better. There's obviously been a huge transition from then to now. So I'd like to
Yeah.
hear from you then to now.
Sure. So one of the biggest things, what I said, we can talk as much as we want, and CBT is CTB, cognitive behavioral therapy. I did that backwards. Sorry, that's part of my brain injury. Is amazing. However, we must have a physical experience with the body. So the silver lining for me was that my counselor at the time um, referred me to another PhD doctor in clinical psychology and also natural medicine. And so I studied with him. I went in deep. My family, my husband at the time was so supportive of me to do anything that I could to get better. But the level of my trauma was so extreme that the only way I was going to get through what I was going through was to actually go through intense psychotherapy, which absolutely changed my life and is the reason why I know that for me is why did all this happen to me? Because of this, because
Yep.
we're right here doing what we're doing right now. And I mean, this is, you have every dream of your life taken away from you. You would do anything for 5 minutes of peace in your head. I
Yes.
mean, the family gets affected. My kids, when I look back now, here's the thing. I wasn't clued in to how severe it was for people around me until probably 4.5 years in. I started to realize things. When I met Dr. Jalili, and then I was taking care of Ryan after his therapy, to see what people around me had to go through was
Right.
heartbreaking.
Yes.
I'm like gonna tear up
That's
because
okay. That's
Well,
okay.
that's one of the
Listen, I can.
things too, is that, it's so important. And, you're good. You're good.
That's all right.
Right.
Hey, listen, that's what
Um,
this is all about. There are emotions that come out. I can just state that, when I was going through my issues, my mother she just couldn't understand how
no,
and
yeah.
I was 30 years
no,
old. Let's
yeah,
not forget when I was going through my dark side, she couldn't believe that her son, that was this precarious, or not precarious,
yeah,
but very boisterous, always out there, was all of a sudden this shell of himself. So I can feel that emotion, and it is very important because a lot of people don't realize, because we become singular, we
yeah,
forget how much we hurt or how much we affect the people around us. Continue,
yeah,
please.
Well, a lot of what happens with this is you get very depersonalized from
Right.
your physical being. It's like a depersonalization because you've gone into this, fight or flight for so long.
Yep.
It's like you become used to it. And then it's like it's like I want to feel again or feel nothing. And then that's why so many people turn to narcotics and the alcohol and
yeah,
That's right.
substances, overeating, you name it. There's always something to turn to or grab
yeah,
to as a codependency kind of tool
Right.
because they don't know how to deal with what's going on with between their two ears, which is like it's like a radio. Basically, the radio was built by man, duplicating basically the human brain, kind of like we're antennas. And so
Right.
when that antenna has been staticky and like kind of messed with, the frequencies that are going through our brain are obviously being affected too.
Good
So
analogy.
obviously for anyone who has an exuberant amount of energy and then obviously something happens traumatically in say a traumatic event, whether it be verbal, physical, anything like that, an accident, all that kind of stuff. Um, you become it's hard to compartmentalize things. And then it's like, it's like, I can't even trust myself at this point right now. So how can I
Right.
trust that person? I don't want to be around these people because maybe they think I'm off or something
Yeah.
like that.
yeah. We had that conversation
Like this
today.
guy, I was, it was funny. We were setting a little something up the other day. It was like a little event that we were doing. And this guy's like, I really worry about you guys.
Oh yeah,
And, we got a little emotional. And I was like, why is that? And he's like, well, no one really knows because I forgot that I actually came back here one day after treatment and I couldn't walk for 3 days.
Yeah.
Like I'm okay right now. I'm good. Like I'm
Yeah.
really good right now. But for those, he saw me at my absolute worst, and I forgot that I told him, I was like, I just got back from brain treatment. I've been
Oh my
electrocuted, and
God.
my
Yeah.
vagus nerve had been opened up, and like I'm Mr. Extreme here. So I got like this guy pumping this Vegas out. He's like, do you feel anything yet? And I did. And I'm like, nope,
yeah.
nope,
Go
nope.
for
So
it.
I wanted just to get the thing just completely expanded in my neck to open my spine up, which feels like lightning bolts are going through it half the times, and ice picks in my ears and eyes,
Yeah.
whatever. I don't mean to get all dramatic about it, but that's the
That's all right.
truth. It's the truth.
So
Like that is the truth. So he's like, I feel sorry for you because no one can see it on the inside. And I was like, nailed it. You nailed
Yeah.
it right there. I'm like, I
that's
know, I think I look okay on the outside and I am okay, but I'm not okay a lot of the time because
right.
of the feelings, the deep emotional feelings. And then, I want to be able to show up in life because I know that the more that you give life into life, the more life gives to you. I
Well,
realize that cause effect,
yeah,
so, you
and
know,
Ryan, that's the journey, right? To try and figure it all out alone. That's so blessed that you have each other right now, and of course, all the great people around you. There are a lot of people that are alone and don't find the answers. So that's why
yeah.
we do shows like this. Obviously, we're here on
Yeah.
Concussed, understanding the visible injury. There's a couple of great comments here. You should be proud of yourselves, Ryan and Cielo, for helping so many along with Gooch and his team. Thank you for that. I honestly think that I'm kind of unique in thinking that because I'm successfully pivoting, and we do a lot of that. A lot of people don't realize that when you're dealing with these emotional issues that come along with a concussion, you're pivoting a lot.
Exactly.
If it is a brain
That's
injury, I see the positive of it so
so
much
good.
so that I no longer regret what happened to me. And if you met Robert Wine, who I've been around personally, he
I
is
don't look like Chuck.
absolutely an inspiration.
You're my
Very nice.
best, Chuck.
I love this.
Thanks,
I
Bear.
love this comment. All right, and final one. Oh boy, Carrie, I put my mother through hell for 15 years until age 30. I am willing to admit that now and forgive myself. Mom forgave me, and that's great to hear. Listen, before we let you go, I want to get down to some very important topics, of course. I see the great t shirts and hats that you have. Talk to us about that. It's a really, I don't know much about it, but it's a really cool design, and I'm intrigued to understand more about it. And I know it's something to help us all understand ourselves
Absolutely.
better and certainly move in a positive direction because concussions, again, take us down a very dark side, but the healing process can be just enlightening.
Well, obviously, Brent Sopel. Brent and I go way back, many, many years. Brent's I consider him one of my best friends, if not my best friend in life. God, if we could have our screenshots on our texts, you know, uh, Brent's here to change the world, and you can't do that alone. You need to come together as a unit in harmony. And Brent's got his foundation, the Brent Sopel Foundation, which I encourage everybody to go check out the Brent Sopel Foundation, which we actually have collaborated and are donating 10% of all sales. We started off with the apparel line, DSM, Divine Source Matter. So you can make it everybody matters. You can make it brain matter. Um, you know, Massive supporter with Brent with his awareness that he's bringing to dyslexia. So I'll let you take over a little bit here because Cielo, kind of got into the mix, and her and Brent are, they're good buds now. so um,
Well, I want to touch on one thing you said. Somebody mentioned they felt so alone, and I think that was what really, Ryan and I have a lot in common. But when I went through what I went through, when we first came back in each other's lives, we were talking about some of the things we felt, and it was like the first time anybody had ever like, yeah, I feel that. I have the ringing in the ear. I can't like just a plethora of stuff that each of us had gone through alone, where no one else understood it. And both of us have been working so much doing service work in the world, and when we were together, um, good things happen, and if we had the same vision, and the thing that I think resonates the most is we come from the place of the heart. And as we were two brains in this little box here, what happened was collaborate a lot of meditation, a lot of personal work, and introspective work, and a lot of healing. And we're still doing that. But we want everybody to understand that at the bottom line of it all, we are all made of the same stuff. And we are just so blessed in this world today to have the ability to be unique and be of the same source matter, but uniquely expressed in infinite possibilities. And everything we do, we just want it to, we come into this world, what are you here for? To raise each other up. Like, please, can we start doing that now?
yeah,
Absolutely.
you know,
That's
You
a
know
great
what?
way. Hey, listen, you can come over here and help us tomorrow build these walls so
Yeah,
that we'll be ready with our new studio.
Yeah,
Listen, I want to ask you a couple more questions just before we let you go. I
yeah,
know that we've spent 40, almost 50 minutes together, and we haven't even scratched the surface.
right?
So I look
exactly.
forward
Yeah,
to continuing on and learning
please.
Yeah.
more
That'll be
about you.
good.
Is there a website that we can learn a little bit about what you guys are doing? Give me a second because I want to put it up. Obviously, there will be people that'll watch this, over the 48-hour period. There'll be a couple hundred people that'll come on, and obviously through the world
The
Wi-Fi,
World
there'll
Web.
be people from around the world. So give me a website people can go to.
Well, the website's in the works right now. We're going to do a
Okay,
soft launch with the clothing. They can go onto Instagram onto Divine Source Matter Apparel. 10% of that does go towards
all
the
right,
Brent Sobel Foundation.
okay,
We're also going to be raising money along the journey with many more health and wellness products,
Mhm.
right,
with
And
the
programs.
and
Yeah.
programs and collaborations with other people in the mental health space.
okay,
And we want to be building more of these brain clinics, not just in Canada, but in the USA. But this is
yeah,
global. This is a global, not, I don't want to even call it a brand. This isn't a brand. This
it's a
is an
movement.
infinite source
It
that
just moves.
it just, hey,
You got it.
did
It's a
you
movement.
say that? It just
Yeah,
moves. Hey,
I
hold on
actually
two
did say.
secs.
Oh,
Hold on two
take that.
secs.
One
It's a
sec.
movement.
And then I do want to
So
tell you about some
yes, please.
things that will help people in a sec. But just look what you just did.
You just got the tagline. It just moves.
It's just a move. Well, I
Yeah.
said it's a
Are
movement,
you a,
so
are you the
I'm
psychic or what?
I'm a
Yeah,
psychic. There's
Hey,
no
what
question.
happens when you hang out with us.
so
Hey, so
Um,
you're going to talk a little bit more. I want to ask you a couple
yeah,
more questions. Obviously, it's a phenomenal logo, and I caught my eye right off the bat.
yeah.
yeah.
But what's more important, I wanted to ask you both this question because it's plagued me for a while. Because we're all so politically correct. There are
Mm,
there are so many people. Somebody gets a concussion, boom, they start a foundation.
mhm.
Somebody gets mental health, they get through it, boom, they start a foundation. It's like when I got involved with prostate cancer. My father got very sick, and we lost him through prostate cancer. And the first thing I did back in 2001 is I Googled it. What is prostate cancer? Who do I go talk to? What do I understand? And I got the Canadian Prostate Association, and I got the Ontario and the Manitoba, and none of them were together. There were all
Yeah.
these mixed messages, one going this way, one giving me advice
I love that.
that way. And until November came and really galvanized the movement of what prostate cancer for men was, we didn't really get it. And now we're starting
Mm,
to get it. So, my question to you is that every time we have all these different foundations working, it going left, going right,
mhm.
how do we galvanize this all? You're doing
Well,
great work.
Same here.
And
yeah.
so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I'm not criticizing people by
Mhm.
any means, but we got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, just like our show. We've got hundreds of these video podcasts trying to get us to understand. But how do we narrow it down to understand what we need to do? Love to hear your
That's one
thoughts.
of the best questions I think that's ever been come my way and now your way. So, first of all, this whole mental health thing is not a popularity contest. This is a very serious deal that, okay, first of all, the world is going through a major transition right now. So, we're all experiencing trauma globally. And, with that being said, it's like, you know, the two of us are connected to every single mental health big platform in Canada. And we can, have those discussions and do this, and you can throw your money here or there. But it's like, where is your money going to help this person or that organization expand where they can get people healthy? It's all about health and wellness. If there's no health and wellness, what do you got? You got the people that are stuck, isolated in their home, thinking that they're more messed up than they probably are. A lot of it is overstimulation with our phones, with our screens, social media. I mean, it's you didn't like my picture on social media, you must hate me. Like there's a lot to be said about how we actually look at mental health, digest on what it means to you, and that every single one of us in this world can be a mental health advocate. It's not about advocating, it's about just speaking your truth, your absolute truth on what it is that your message is, and how we can literally, really make a dent in it. And, and I said that in my TED Talks that I was blessed to do after I rode across Canada, Carrie. And, it all comes down to, getting the right people involved, surrounding yourself with positive, like-minded people that only want the best for the collective. Not one person who is just like, okay, I'm a mental health advocate and I'm going to do this. No. We can't have it that way. It has to be, we have to bind together as one, as a unit. We may not all agree on everything, but at the end of the day, we have to agree at one thing. We're all connected in some way, shape, or
Yes, we
form.
are.
We all share this big sphere together. And the more that we can actually put out deliberate intentions of healing and goodness, the more that will come our way in the healing modalities, so to speak. And it's I say, hey Ryan, good to see you're pushing for change. I'm not pushing. I don't push against anything. Pushing is going against the flow of life. I'm trying to go downstream and with the flow. I
Yeah,
really appreciate that. I mean, I could have had a little bit of a push maybe when I was going across the Rockies a couple years ago on
exactly.
that
Yeah,
bicycle,
yeah,
but
yeah.
at the end of the day, um, like I said, everything starts up top. We can all say we're a mental health advocate. We've all had anxiety, depression, this or this and this. But at the end of the day, what can we all do? Like, we can have campaigns, we can do this, we can do
Yep,
that. But what we're going to have on our website, that will be launched fairly soon, is
yep.
we're going to have many kinds of solutions
That's very
to,
important.
okay, let's say you're having a manic episode. Let's say this is happening. We're going to have hotlines set up. I mean, our house is a goddamn hotline. we,
Yeah,
we had to do two suicide interventions this past
yeah,
week. A couple with alcohol and whatnot,
yeah.
whatever. But like literally, one of my good friends, his dad, who I've known for 40 some odd years. We grew up playing hockey together. He had three nooses tied, in his room. People don't know behind the scenes so what actually goes down sometimes,
Yeah,
so,
no
you
question.
know, so maybe
Yeah, I'm
see
going
it.
to ask a question.
So what was it? What's that?
What was your question? Sorry.
No, no, I thought wonderful that you're presenting it that way. Obviously, being close to Jim Thompson, doing
Yeah,
interventions right now are just absolutely crazy. And I wanted to
crazy.
put this up, livewellyoga.ca. Obviously, that is you, Cielo. I'm really excited that people can go just take a peek, because I think we have to look also internalize and be able to take care of ourselves first. Because if we can't take care of ourselves
Totally.
first, we can't
Thank
help
you.
everybody around us.
Yeah.
So I looked at your website, and I really am blessed to be able to listen. This body I'm on the COVID 25 kick, and that's
Yeah.
kilos. Um,
Yeah.
I've gained a little bit of weight as we've gone through this, and I know that I have to now take care of myself and make sure that if I'm good, I can help people be good around you. And I really liked your analogy there when we were talking, Ryan, with Greg, when he said push. I don't think he meant in that way, but the fact that you're
I'm just messing around.
the fact
I'm
that you guys are vulnerable and that you open up and you tell your story is what I was making on the earlier part, is that you're not a doctor. I'm certainly not a doctor, but you know what? I got two ears, as you do, to listen. And then if I can't diagnose you, but I know somebody that I can take you to, listen, you got to go see this person or go see that person, because that's all people need to
Yeah.
know, that we
Yeah.
care,
Yeah.
we'll listen, we won't
Yeah.
pass judgment, and
Yeah.
we'll find, and I know you've done that, Cialo, where you'll find a way to help these people.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, where there's a will, there is a way. Do not ever give up. If I was told, just don't bother, just go on disability, never work again. Not just
Yeah,
once, twice in my life. The
yeah,
first time I was misdiagnosed with bipolar, and I was like, I'm not that. I don't think that's what I thought, you know what? The only way I'm gonna get better is if I dedicate my life to wellness, me first. And I quit everything in my life. I packed up everything. I went super deep into meditation, and I dedicated my life to teaching yoga,
that's
and I've
great.
from there been doing lots of other things. But you have to have a personal affinity for whatever it is that you do. If
Yep.
you're going to be doing something, someone's telling you to go jog 20 miles, what's that going to do if you hate it every time? Like, you need to find little things you can be consistent with every day. When we have stress, the first thing that is affected is your breath. Period. If you contract, or we don't, we hold our breath. So it's like
Right.
taking the reins to the horse and getting ourselves back in our body.
And
Ryan
not
talked
moving.
about something that is so important. I just want to talk about it quickly, is the fact that he talked about being depersonalized. When we've had trauma and when we've had concussions, the body's no longer safe. Where do we go? Out of there. We're dissociated. And if we look at the scale of that, it's a little bit or a lot. And we go from, a little bit of maybe not being present right now and maybe making bad choices, all the way to self-medicating, to bipolar and depression and schizophrenia. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. So it's like,
Right.
how do we need to be right now our own biggest teachers. Like, everything in the world right now, we've depended on so much, but now we're isolated, we're cut off from people, and we're forced into this little, what I call a petri dish. In
Yeah.
yoga, we have a
That's
specific
right.
word from it. It means self-study. So when I get on my mat, I'm like, where, and I feel something because it's coming out of my body. I'm like, where's that emotion that I feel that somewhere else in my life? Where's the pattern? And we have to right now take responsibility for ourselves. We have to
Mhm.
go inside, because right now the world is forcing us to do that. It's a gift. Go in, because that is the only place you're going to find what you need.
Oh,
Yes,
that's
you're going to have
wonderful.
help.
I think there's a huge thing to be
Make
said
sure. Yeah.
about actually turning your trauma and your injuries or whatever, and really, turning that into your divine purpose.
Yeah.
That's like I could sit back on my butt and figure something else out in my life that might
Yeah.
pay me more or whatever, but I sincerely am not in this for the money. I know that what I've been through, playing no victimization whatsoever here, that if I can help in some way through certain channels and mediums of whatever to get to a place where other people don't have to suffer, then I can
Yep.
lay my head on the pillow every night and know that I was a good human that day. That's it.
Well, and that's the truth, and I think that's what the vulnerability allows us to be able to do, because we can open up and talk freely, right? There are a lot of people that still have that stigma. You mentioned the word stigma about mental health. We're just always aware, or always afraid of wearing that mask, right, and taking that mask off. And I think today I have learned so much from you both, Cielo, and of course Ryan. We've been an hour, which is amazing, but I think
Goes by
and
quick,
before
eh?
we go, yeah, before
Five
we go,
minutes.
you both are going to have an opportunity to say your final words. But here are my final words to you: don't change. Continue on, please. There are so many people that require your knowledge, your passion, your empathy, and most importantly, your vulnerability. Because without that, what are we as human beings? And I think you mentioned about getting within inside yourself, and your breathing part. I'm an asthmatic, and
Yeah.
through the pandemic, my asthma has gone. Why? Because I'm not as stressed. I'm not having to do flying
Yeah.
here and there and
Yeah.
having all these issues and stress around. There are other stress that have come, of course, not
Yeah.
having a job, but it has allowed me to get within inside myself. And I can only agree, or only substantiate what you've said. By me not being under that stress, my breathing has become so much better, and I've not had to mental, for the last 100 days. So I really appreciate that comment. All right, we're going to wrap it up. We're always going to leave the lady for the last word. I'm going to give you, of course, Ryan, the opportunity just to sum us up and give us the 45-second version of what we just talked about and where we can go to continue on down the path of healing.
Well, healing all starts with yourself. You have to make that decision that, you want to heal and you want to be better. And, I get a lot of DMs that come into my Instagram and whatnot. Reach out to me and I can try to get to you to the best of my ability and then send you to the right people. I want to give my gratitude to my friend Brent, we're all a team here. We've created this for a purpose, and I guess all I can say is I'm really grateful that having this opportunity to just spread a little bit of love, and That's it. Compassion and kindness. There's a huge thing to be said about that. Girl, lady,
Okay,
girl, lady.
girl, lady. Um, I think I asked Ryan a question today. I was cooking away, and I was like, Ryan, what do you think the one thing that the world needs is right now?
Love.
There you go. So,
It all starts to you.
yeah, I learned a long time
I
ago.
don't know how I got so soft.
I know it's
Squishy,
crazy.
squishy. No, so let if I can say anything, what is the most important thing? We all get trapped in a moment, and we're either in the past or in the present. And when that happens, it's overwhelming. It's like it's gonna last forever. And so
Yep.
I learned a long time ago that everything I thought, everything around me was reacting to it. So I understood that
Good
everything
point.
is sound. Everything is sound. Everything is vibration, or it wouldn't exist. It's from light and then sound and then form. So whatever I thought in my head was going on, I was attracting more of it in spades, and sometimes really not the things I really wanted in my life. So I
Yep.
understood at that moment, because I was so riddled with fear, and I was really going to become what was around me. It was like my mantra was be positive. The
Yep.
second a thought that came into my head that wasn't okay, I'm putting in a picture of like my favorite good looking guy, or a baby that right, it's you. I'm going to think of you all the time now.
You know.
This moment that made me happy, the ability to make a little change in the world, shift anything. But look at a flower, it will change you. Believe me. But
Yeah.
I think more than anything, when you come from a place of understanding that, is that we all just stop and breathe,
Yep.
pause for a minute, and consider you never ever know what the other person you are dealing with is is going through. You don't know that the person that walked down the street and you decided to smile at that time was the reason why they're here today. So just be
Yeah.
kind.
100%.
Just be kind. We are all going through hell right now in a different way than everyone has ever experienced in life, and one that is going to really, if we can be resilient and really empower ourselves, we are going to be amazing human beings. Got to
Cryptic,
do it.
cryptic,
Just
cryptic
got to do
words.
it.
And I will end it. Those are wonderful words because my mother taught me this very important point, and you've just highlighted it. Is that if you surround yourself around positivity,
Yeah,
life is positive. If you surround yourself around negativity, your life becomes negative. And I lost my mother a couple of years ago. I loved her dearly, more than probably anybody outside of my wife. I better say that. But one of the things that she gave me as she left the world is she gave me a hibiscus. And trust me, I can't water a plant. Like,
yeah,
I'm bad. And I wake up every day and come downstairs and there's a hibiscus. And it doesn't, if anybody knows anything about hibiscus, I've learned
I
it
have them.
because that was her
Huge
favorite
ones in
plant.
my window. They're beautiful. Your
It's her
mother was
favorite plant,
amazing.
and it opens up only so often. Like, it's not always there. And as soon as that plant opens up, it just gives me positivity because I remember all the things that she brought to me. And I think from you, Cielo, it's so important that let's live in the moment. The past helped us get to the moment. Let's make sure we enjoy that moment because we don't know what the next moment's going to be. But that next moment can only be what you make it to be and who you surround yourself with. And you two have made an incredible impression, not only on myself, but a lot of listeners.
Thank
And
you.
I really appreciate having you on. And we will do part two in exactly 4 weeks because I want to see
Yes.
where you two are. And let's talk a little bit more about inspiring the world. Thank you. Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank
Thank
you. You
you.
guys were
Thank
amazing.
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Love you
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah. Love to
Unbelievable.
love to everybody.
Well, I'll tell you what, do not forget to go check this out, livewellyoga.ca. Again, I'm not very good. I can't even get down on the yoga mat with all the injuries I've had. But I'll tell you what, my wife does yoga every morning. I wake up, and her body aches. She's down there doing the yoga moves. She's asked me to be down there. And I'll tell you a quick story, a funny story before we leave, because it's all about being vulnerable. We were trying to do yoga and stretching, and this body is like an asphalt parking lot. So there I am trying to do these moves and stuff like that. And she said, and it's yoga. She's got yoga on. And I said, T, I can't do it. My body just won't work. And she says, okay, hang on. I'll Google. So she Googles and she gets stretching. So we look at the stretching things, and I'm trying to do it. And honestly, I look like a pretzel that's been overbaked. It's not working. So she says, okay, I got an idea. Why don't we do stretching for seniors? True story. I can't even lie to you. So stretching for seniors, they had this yoga mat on the ground, and these older ladies are getting down and doing all these stretches and pulling their leg behind their head and all that sort of stuff. And I literally could not do one. No, 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 not one of the stretches. So she brought out a chair, and it changed the world. I sat in the chair and did the yoga seated. So I'll tell you what, from a pro athlete to having to live like that, please go out and check out livewellyoga.ca. And of course, a big shout out to our very good friend, Brent Sobel. Ryan has said it best. He is changing, he's not trying to change the world, he is changing the world. Thank you for being a part of Concussed, understanding the visual injury. This injury takes us many places, but tonight it took us to a positive place with Ryan and Cielo. Until next Tuesday, you've been watching Concussed, understanding the invisible injury. Thank you.